Welcome everyone. Thanks for taking your time to join today's webinar. We're going to start, but before we do, just a quick, few technical details. We are in webinar mode, so obviously you cannot see each other. Me and the team on our side can see you guys, and we can chat with you. You can chat with us. Your messages won't be visible to anyone, so feel free to type anything technical related in the chat. I'll also prompt you to add some things in the chat. We also will have a Q&A session at the end. So during the webinar, as we go, maybe some content will drive some questions from your end. Maybe some questions would pop up in your head. Feel free to type them as we go, and I'll just review them at the end of the presentation. So welcome, very warm welcome to everyone again. My name is Agnieszka Santmai. I'm a director at Klein's Beauty and Wellbeing practice, and I have the pleasure of being both your host and your presenter today. Let me just tell you a little bit about Klein in case some of you guys haven't worked with us yet or do not know much about Klein and Company. We've been on the market for over 65 years. In terms of professional hair care, because today's presentation is obviously on that industry. In terms of professional hair care, we've been tracking that since 1990s. We have offices all around the world. Myself, I'm based out of Poland. And we provide both syndicated solutions, so for multiple clients that are ready off the shelf that could be purchased, as well as advisory services, whereas we help you strategize, we help you take some of your business decisions. Today's presentation is based on multiple products, multiple studies that Klein publishes within the professional hair care industry. But the two key ones that I wanted to share with you a little bit more about are professional hair care and Klein Pro. These are two core studies in our professional hair care portfolio that I am thrilled basically to head globally. And they are very different. They complement each other, but they are very different in terms of coverage and methodology. So just in few words, let me tell you what is it that you will be looking at, because it's based on these two studies. So professional hair care, the number one, is actually a global study. We analyze every year more than 30 markets. We also have mid-year update, and starting this year also quarterly, so the frequency increased. But this, what we are going to show you today, is based off 2025 study, 2025 base year, freshly off the press. So you get a little sneak peek into the broad spectrum of information and data that we have in this particular study. So we have 37 markets this year. Yearly, it's 30 plus. And this study, this product is based mostly of interviews that we conduct across the globe. So hundreds and hundreds of discussions that our research team is having with different industry professionals. So it's mostly with manufacturers of professional hair care, but also distributors and also other key stakeholders. This is the core of our research. Plus, of course, we back it up with some secondary research. And we also have great collaboration with a lot of our clients, key players in the industry that do the data sharing with us. Second study is Klein Pro. It's very different because its geographical scope is limited to US and Canada. We will see some highlights from the US market today. And it is hard data. It's based out of panel of more than 3,000 salons, independent salons in US, where we get transactional data every quarter. So you'll see some highlights from that as well as we go. Just to highlight also the geographical scope of any professional hair care data that we'll be sharing with you today, you will see the analysis that's based on these 37 markets. And it's important to keep that in mind because when we say something is global, that means 47 markets that we are, 37 markets that we are looking at. They do represent the lion's share of the global professional hair care industry, but just keep that in mind that there is another 10 or 15% on top that we do report on, and nevertheless in less detail than we have for every single of these markets, where we have a written report, or we have a database, where we have an interactive dashboard, as well as client interactions, client presentations like we have today, but of course in much more detail and always crafted to each of the clients. And I'm pretty much ready to start sharing the insights with you guys, but so that it's not only me active during this webinar, I have a question to the audience today. Please do find that chat box at the bottom and type ready if you're ready to receive insights from the professional hair care industry 2025. Type ready in the chat box that you have at the bottom. Thank you. All right. I see some of you guys are definitely ready. Okay, let's move on then. Let me start off with the big picture. So, the trend line that you see is not very surprising. I'd say this is the performance of the overall sales of the professional hair care products, regardless where they occur. So whether they occur in salons or whether they occur through different retail outlets and online platforms. And what you can see is definitely for the last few years, basically starting 2022, the growth, it's still positive, but the growth has been progressively slowing down. And of course, it varies, right? It varies by region, by country, it varies by channel, it varies by category. So there are different elements to that puzzle, nevertheless, that add up to that slowdown on the market. But when it comes to region, we could put the dynamics of the market into three buckets, three tiers. First one would be those that actually push or press the brake pedal for the market. And in 2025, very similar, I'd say, to 2024, there is North America and Asia that contribute to that, where we see slowdown in both of the regional markets, obviously driven by the biggest market in North America, US. And in terms of Asia, the biggest slowdown that we see is going through China. Second bucket is that neutral bucket, where it's more or less in line with the market. And here we have Europe. And Europe, if you compare it to Asia or North America, is twice as fast in terms of growth. And again, it's a plethora of markets, and different markets perform, with different dynamics. And I do have another question for you guys. There's one market in the Western European top 5 markets that actually for last few years has been a star performer, that has grown beyond what usually these developed markets in Europe show as growth. Please type in chat, which market do you think that is? Which market in Western Europe you believe has been a star performer? Okay, let me check the chat. All right, France. No, that's not France. Spain. Yes, it has been Spain. Yeah, what we've seen for the last few years, especially 25 and 24, We have seen quite an impressive performance from the Spanish market, driving the overall growth in Europe, along with some smaller markets such as Romania, for example. But in Spain, it's really specialty retail, premium retail that has been driving the market. And finally, we have those markets. So we have first bucket, those that put the brake pedal on. Second market is the neutral ones in Europe. And the third one is the ones that actually give market higher speed, so that press that gas pedal. And these are Latin America. And if you remember maybe from the slide before, we have quite a few markets covered in Latin America this year. So we have Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. So 6 markets, pretty good coverage of that region. And what we see, yes, that there's growth across the region, and also what we call rest of world here. But under the bucket rest of world, we have Middle East, we have South Africa, but the biggest market in the rest of world is Australia, and Australia is definitely driving that growth. And here, what's very interesting is that brick and mortar has been thriving. And interesting fact is that it actually has grown more than e-commerce last year, and it's bigger than e-commerce for sales of professional hair care products. All right, moving forward, let's add to that simple market trend line two forces that pull the market in two different directions. On top, we have treatments that actually the trend line for treatments since 23 is completely opposite to the market, right? It's just pacing up, it's just speeding up. And finally, in 2025, actually treatments achieved low double-digit growth, right? And second one, at the bottom is the hair coloring category. And that's the category that's trending down even more than the total market. And actually, in 2025, we see that color category, first time since COVID, is in negative growth. Just for you guys to imagine that shift that has been happening on the market, let me ask you guys another question. How many of you have seen our posts on LinkedIn related to where the market was, professional market was 10 years ago and where it is now? Type me in the chat, please. Type me if you've seen our LinkedIn post on that. I think it's extremely interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks everyone for sharing. I'm happy that you guys have seen that. I think it's a very interesting point of view because within a decade, there are a lot of shifts on the markets that happen. And first, let's start off with what happened to two key categories, care and color. So on the left-hand side, as you can see, care has gained immensely share in the professional hair care market, now accounting for more than 50%, more than half of the market is care products. So that includes the fast-growing treatments, but that also includes shampoos and conditioners that continue to grow not as in such a robust way as treatments, but still a very robust performance. And on the flip side, we have color, and color has gradually lost share and now accounts for basically less than 30% of the market. And we'll look at some of the drivers that are behind each of these shifts in the industry. But before we do that, let's look at two other opposite forces that are impacting the market, without which it would be difficult to discuss that shift in categories. And this is obviously about channels. Channel dynamics impact category dynamics, color dynamics as well, very much, right? Because we couldn't discuss color performance without discussing performance of sales to salons overall, which has been declining for the last few years, as you can see that red dotted line at the bottom. Similarly, there wouldn't be such a high growth in treatments if it wasn't for the omni-channel, right? If it wasn't for expansion into retail. So if you analyze that top trend line, the green dotted line, a dashed line actually, between 2022 and 2025, that growth is pretty constant. It's constantly above the market and it's constantly dynamic. And it's actually both about e-commerce and brick and mortar stores. So you could see that already these two impact the shift that's happening between color and care in the professional hair care market. So let's just look a little bit further into that. So similarly, on the left-hand side, you see the share that salon and other channels had in the professional hair care market sales 10 years ago and now. So if we look back at salons, they almost, maybe not a monopoly, but they had almost exclusivity, right? To sales of professional hair care products back then, when we had first players going into other channels, our clients would be, asking us, what should we do? What should we do? It's not very professional to go into Sephora, to go into Ulta, to go into, drugstores, pharmacies. And yet here we are 10 years later, and it's less than two-thirds of the market that salons account for. If we look at e-commerce, right, it accounts for already 24%, so almost a quarter of the market, and brick and mortar stores also have grown in terms of impact. The same picture is seen in 2025, and there are some markets that obviously contribute to the decline of the salons. Some of the big ones that contribute in nominal the most are US, China, but also France. And in terms of those that also see salon growing still, despite the global trend, there are two big developing markets, so Brazil and India, and another interesting market, which is Japan. Japan, despite all of the pressure that the whole world has on going omnichannel, it remains Planet Japan, where players are concentrated on salons for distribution of professional products, and there is very little distribution of professional products outside salons to consumers. So let's take a further look into each of these two categories, one that is driving the market and one that is actually putting the brakes on. And putting a little bit of context around it, as you can see, treatments are by far the fastest growing category among all. So this bar chart that you can see here shows the dynamics of each of the categories in 2025 versus 24. So treatments stand out immensely. Consumers shop more and more, especially outside salons for those. They prioritize repair, bond building. They prioritize scalp health. We'll look into that in a few minutes as well. They prioritize hydration and overall more holistic, wellness aspect for the hair and scalp as well. Other care categories, as mentioned, shampoos and conditioners, they also show a pretty robust growth. Here, premiumization plays a big role, and also for increasing demand for benefit-led solutions in care. Styling, on the other hand, if we put these two categories that grow and decline, so color and treatments, styling has been lagging behind a little bit. For last 2 years, we've seen that styling went from mid-single digit increases to very low single digit increase. That's largely impacted by the US market that accounts for majority of professional hair care sales, styling sales, sorry, not hair care sales. So that slowdown on the US market is definitely impacting styling. And what we see is there's increasing constantly. There's increasing competition from retail brands, and there is also increasing plethora of benefits incorporated into care products, and that includes benefits, styling related benefits. Amika is a great example of brand that includes that into their care products. So finally, coloring and texturizing. Texturizing is a small and declining category for a few years now. And finally, hair coloring, as mentioned, first time since COVID in decline. So let's look at treatments and what is driving that double-digit increase and how the category looks like. Of course, these are just top-line data points. We have way more data in our interactive databases, reports, and dashboards. So if you're interested and still don't have access to it, feel free to reach out after the webinar. So from the left-hand side, we have a split of rinsive versus leave-in. And if you look at that weight, it's roughly 50-50. Nevertheless, leave-in treatments actually are a bit slower, still growing, but a bit slower. And we'll also see when we'll be showing some best-selling SKUs, best-selling new products, you'll see a lot of leave-in treatments, and actually rinse-off treatments are not growing as fast. Apologies. Leave-in treatments would be the ones driving the growth, driving in terms of new, the product pipeline and innovation and new products. When it comes to geographies, funny enough, same markets that contribute to the decline of color. So US and China are also behind the nominal growth of treatments. So that kind of balances off the growth there. There's also Brazil that contributes a lot in nominal terms. And finally, an interesting fact about this category is that unlike in other categories in care or styling, take home, so sales to final consumers accounts for almost 3/4 of that market. So vast majority of the sales of professional styling products are sales at the end of the day to consumers through different channels. All right, let's look at the leaderboard on the right-hand side. Kerastase is definitely the leader in treatments, but it's also the leader in care, and it's also the #1 brand when it comes to the overall professional hair care, all categories combined, although it's active only in care and a little bit in styling. So Kerastase definitely a leader and also growing in terms of share, followed by its sister brand L'Oréal Professionnel. That also is growing in share. And the third player, very interesting because in treatments globally, despite all the declines that we've seen from Olaplex in the past, it's still #3 when it comes to treatments. Still, strong product pipeline, and of course a new owner coming soon. So I guess we need to stay tuned to see what's going to happen to Olaplex sales in the future. For now, it's very strong in terms of ranking still. Now, I think the most interesting ranking here is Wella Professionals, because so many companies and brands out there have seen Wella as the color brand, right? Yes, they're still #1 in color. But for the last few years, what we've seen Wella do is build a second leg they stand on. So now Wella is very big in color and has a proper also presence in care. So it entered the leaderboard in treatments last year with #5 position, and it climbed with a very robust growth that we'll see in a second to #4. And finally, #5 is Milben, the biggest player in Japan, brand and company at the same time, we could say. Also active in several North Asian markets and paving its way in the US market, very competitive market, but also the biggest market in the world. So definitely worth the effort. We've seen the leaderboard. Now let's see the leaderboard when it comes to growth. So three of the brands that are the biggest in treatment are also contributing to the most nominal growth. And these are Kerastase, LP, and Avella Professionals. We see very robust growth from Kerastase. Kerastase is one of these brands that has been growing outside salons a lot in premium retail, also on Amazon across different markets. L'Oréal Professionnel follows also strong partnerships, retail partnerships, but also when it comes to new product launches, there's a constant pipeline of new product launches. For example, Absolute Repair Molecular was a very strong recent launch from L'Oréal Professionnel. And as mentioned, Vela Professionals that, basically build its presence in the category very recently, starting with Ultimate Repair, very successful line that was still adding SKUs last year, but also Ultimate Smooth followed up as another super successful launch, building that base for Vela in professional hair care and in treatments in particular. Finally, K18, that growth from the brand comes largely from the North American market, and it's mostly because of distribution expansion. They did enter BSG in 2025. And Amika is one of these brands that continues to pop up on our leaderboard when it comes to care categories for a few years now. They seem to have in addition to robust marketing strategy, channel strategy, they also seem to have a pretty good pipeline of products. Their new launches, constantly appear among bestsellers. So that's Amika. And actually, I do have another question to you guys. I'm about to show you, maybe someone was very sharp in some of the products, but I'm about to show you top 10 new products, new SKUs introduced on the US market from our panel of salons in terms of sales. So biggest in terms of sales, new items in 2025. Please type in chat which brand or brands you believe will be among the ones that have leading new SKUs in treatments in US in 2025. Please type the name or names of the brands and let me check. The Orbe, Bella, okay, Bella. Yes, I guess, Kerastase. Yeah, I guess you could have seen, from the growth in global markets that some of these, yes. I think all of you guys are right. So let me move to the next slide. First, let's look at the new SKUs in treatments. There is Orbe, there is Bella. As some of you guessed, there is Kerastase. So these are the other, as I mentioned, the biggest revenue generating SKUs in US salons in terms of new items introduced. From that panel, this is data from that panel that we have in US. So definitely, as I mentioned before, leave-in treatments actually lead here. I think all of those are leave-in treatments. There's quite a few oils. So there's one from Aveda, from Amika, from Vela, from Redken, and of course some serums on top of that. So there's one from Redken, one from Purology. And of course, as you can see, Amika and Vela, they're among the global leaders, and Kerastase in treatments, they're also showing some best-selling SKUs, new SKUs in US. And just to give you an overview of who the key SKUs, which are the key SKUs on the same market in 25 overall. So it's not only new introductions, it's just overall in terms of sales. Here we have some all-in-one products that are trending, which is the number one from Purology, for example, or the one from Redken. We see some of the classics, such as molecular repair hair mask from K18 or Moroccan oil, the original treatment. We have pretty strong presence by now from Color Wow with two products, also two products from Redken, and Vela, as mentioned, Ultimate Repair, one of the products from that line, is also in the leaderboard of top selling SKUs in treatments in US salons. Now, because scalp care is such an important part of care and treatments, we just want to share with you a little bit of context, how scalp care impacts the overall category. So that top trending line is scalp care, and that bottom line is actually the overall hair care, so shampoos, conditioners, and treatments together. And as you can see, scalp care in and out, but consistently outperforms the overall care category. So it's one of the drivers of care category, one of the functions that has continued to trend up. And we have a bunch of, global launches. We have relaunch of Joico Scalp Vitality that it's a barrier care routine. We have a new launch from Paul Mitchell, Clear Collection for sensitive scalp. And it's, with minimum number of ingredients. And finally, Olaplex taps into the longevity mega trend by now. And funny enough, a few years ago, when we were showing to some of our clients portfolio of brands leading in scalp care in terms of innovation, in terms of, addressing different concerns. So we've seen, the Japanese brands such as Melbourne or Shiseido Professional would have a vast portfolio of products. So I know 10 years ago, they already had products for aging scalp. And when I would say that to our clients back then, everyone was, a bit skeptical, sometimes laughing. What does it mean, aging scalp? And here we are, 10 years later or so, with longevity and anti-aging definitely included in the scalp care products. And here as well, just sharing with you who the key players are behind the launches and what are the key launches in particular in scalp care. Again, US market. Here, definitely there is a strong presence of new collection from Orbe Serene Scalp, a densifying collection. And so definitely these three stand out as they are among top 5. And we see the 2 items also from the new collection from Paul Mitchell Clear collection. And here, when we move to the best sellers, it's becoming very green, and that's because of the dominance of Paul Mitchell here, Tea Tree line. They have 6 out of top 10 items. When it comes to best-selling scalp care items in US independent salons. Okay, from that very positive picture of treatments and care and scalp care, let's cool down a little bit here and let's move into the hair coloring category that went into the red zone, as mentioned. So first time since COVID, we see that small decline, but it's a decline. It's a red light for the industry. And it's true that, for the last year or two, we have more and more requests from our clients in terms of, helping them navigate that difficult category because it's becoming very much competitive. It's becoming hard because, there's less color visits, and there's competition from retail, from box color that consumers do turn to because they believe it's better and better quality. So starting on the left-hand side, sorry, just a quick sip. Starting on the left-hand side, what we see here is what we call product types within the color category. And although you don't see big movements, from one year to another, overall, there is, you can see permanent is definitely the biggest, but there is a slight decline in permanent color. So permanent is actually driving the decline in the overall category. And it's not the whole permanent color that declines. We actually, for our clients, have added a little bit more context this year, a little bit of more data splits, and they can see that within the permanent color, there is a subcategory that grows. And it's a very robust category. So if you want to learn which one is it, please do reach out and let us know. Then we have demi, semi, and toners. And within that, combined category, it's, I guess, not a big secret to the industry people that demi-permanent color is the healthiest. And demi-permanent color has been driving the growth or preventing further decline, I'd say, in the category. It's not growing as rapidly as in the past year, so not it's the 25 growth is not as robust as in 24, but it's still a positive growth. So that's in terms of product types. When it comes to geographies, as already mentioned, US and China both contribute to the decline. There's also France. What's interesting though that they all have a little bit of different dynamics. They have things in common, but they also have different dynamics. So when it comes to US, definitely, consumer spending on color services is declining. So we'll see that in a second as well. Consumers spread time in between color visits. That's another thing that's, stopping the growth. And we see a kind of similar pattern on the European markets. And when it comes to China, it's more of the overall context where in China, what we see, there's an emergence of lower cost brands, local brands that effectively compete with the international players. So it just became a very competitive market. And since we track value and not volume, it's like in terms of growth, there's no growth. There's basically a decline in color. When we look at the leaderboard, as mentioned also before, Vela is definitely number one and strengthening its position. That green arrow on the right-hand side means there's growth in share, not only growth, but growth in share. We also have, two L'Oreal brands that follow. So LP and Redken, who's the leader in demi-permanent. And also we have Schwarzkopf Professional from Henkel, which is also a very strong player with increasing share. And finally, Goldwell from Kao. And here's just a bit of a snapshot of those, that in nominal terms, those markets that in nominal terms contribute to the decline. So I mentioned US as being, extended salon visits, China, local and regional brands, and finally Europe. It's also maturity of the market and caution, so a mix of both, where we have consumers spacing out visits in, color visits, and maybe doing some maintenance in the meantime. And here is actually the revenue from and service count from our salon panel in US, just to picture how it looks like on the service side. So in Client Pro, so our salon panel, we track transactional data not only from sales of products, but also service sales. And in pretty much detail, we can see what's been trending when it comes to different types of services. Here, unfortunately, when it comes to color, vast majority is in decline. There's just, some green islands, but they are very, limited when it comes to growth. That area that's marked in green is actually services that decline, but don't decline as much as the overall market. So overall, they gain share. And what you could see basically that, among those that still kind of hold down the fort and like kind of, stay in their strength are services that are possibly less damaging to hair, such as semi-permanent, Possibly less expensive services, so not full, but partial highlights or lowlights. Also bundles. As you can see on the top, there's color cut and treatment. So consumers also go for bundles, but there's not much growth overall there. What's also interesting, and I'm going to highlight it, that is that the revenue decrease is less important. So on the left-hand side is less important than the volume decrease. So that means that the prices are still increasing on the US market of services, of color services here in particular. So it becomes like a closed loop, right? Consumers don't come to salons because services are, priced more and more, and services are priced more and more, so consumers come less. So it becomes a bit of a vicious circle. So when we are to kind of summarize what are the pillars, what's behind the decline and the slowdown and eventual decline of the color, yeah, I would summarize it under three pillars. There's one that is competitive end, right? So how many of you guys feel that the competition on the market in terms of color is increasing wherever you are? Type yes. Please type yes if you feel that the professional hair color is becoming more and more competitive category. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I see some yeses. So you guys, the industry people, basically confirm that color has been, thank you. Yes, yes, thank you. Has continued to be more and more challenging category to navigate in. So recently what we see is I mentioned that about China, that there are local players that have price competitive offer. And in terms of quality, subjective, of course, perception from salons, from consumers sometimes, it matches the international players' offer. We've seen that in markets like China, but also in a lot of Latin American markets, that's the case. And what's interesting, even now in Japan, that brand that you see here, it's Fiole and it is a Japanese brand. It's a mid-tier Japanese brand that competes with international players. So some of those are less expensive or much less expensive. Some of those are similar pricing, slightly less expensive. But because, there might be some local preference for local products, that happens as well. That happens in China, that happens in Japan, definitely. And of course, there's private labels, OEMs in China. And it's not only in China, for example, we know that in Vietnam, also we have a pretty big impact of Chinese OEMs there. Then there's the consumer bucket, right? The reason why the market is declining, because at the end of the day, you need heads and hair to put color on, right? So consumers need to come and need to spend money for this category to sell. And consumers are moving into more like lower maintenance mode. We see the recession aesthetic, so like the recession blonde, so lower maintenance blonde colors. We see a lot of gray blending. We see embracing natural, color, etc. All that is happening to, in consumer world. And finally, there are dual users. We've seen that for a few years now, especially, in the Americas and North America in particular. We've seen that there are more and more consumers, salon goers, that mix into their coloring routine at home color. So it's mostly root touch-ups. So just every other coloring they would go to a salon. But now what we've seen recently is that those consumers that would mix, now they've seen that the quality of the box color offered out there, it's actually pretty good, and they can do just that. So there are some consumers switching just to box color. And finally, the macroeconomic context, right? The prices of services, as we've seen, on great example of US, are increasing, of color services are increasing, whereas the discretionary income is decreasing. So definitely that gap is the gap in consumer spending that choose, other types of goods and services than maybe the money that would be usually spent on color. But not to end on the negative note, let's just look at the forecast. It's still from the last edition. We are about to publish our forecast for this edition for most of the markets. For many of the markets, it's already done and fresh off the press. But I just wanted to show you the pattern that, yes, the market will grow. Yes, we expect treatments to continue to be that force driving it up. And yes, we do expect that color will be below the trend line for the overall market, but we do believe that it will come back to some slight growth. There are several reasons for that. One is that we see that more and more marketers invest in take-home color. Second is that demi-permanent color is growing, and we do see, launches in that area, and we do see that, that could be one of the driving forces to bring that category on the positive side. But overall, we believe that the market would continue on positive performance in the coming years. So ending up on a positive note, let me see if there are any questions. And guys, if you have not asked the question before, please find the Q&A box. I'm just opening it now. There's a, Q&A box up there. Okay. Let me see. Please don't be shy. Your questions will be visible only to me and other panelists, client that helped me run this webinar. So please don't be shy. Okay, thanks. So first question that we have is that you said that Kerastase is the biggest brand out there. What is that? Yeah, basically the person is questioning whether Kerastase is a professional brand because they see them in retail. As I mentioned, under our professional hair care series, we capture all the totality of sales of the brands. It's true that many of the brands decided to go more into retail, as long as they still have meaningful presence in salons and professional heritage, we still capture their sales. So Kerastase is a professional heritage, and still a lot of sales happen to and through salons. Is this shift between care and color expected to remain constant, or could it change over time? Thank you for this question. It's still going to continue that that care, as you've seen the trend line on the last slide, that care is going to remain the driving force. Nevertheless, we believe that it's not going to be that drastic of a future for color, and it might catch up a little bit. But still, the growth in care, in treatments in particular, but in care overall, driven largely by scalp care, but also other functions such as hydration. Deep repair is also a very big function. It's going to continue. So thanks for that question as well. Let me see, because there's some questions, I think, in the chat. Okay. How do you foresee the permanent hair color evolving? I think with permanent color, it's the matter of whether marketers will continue to invest in making this category very safe for consumers. Healthy hair at the end of the day is number one desire of consumers and of hairdressers, to give to consumers as well. If there is a shift in safer ingredients, we've seen already a lot, happening in a lot of care ingredients added into color. I think demi-permanent, I don't think so. We've seen that through various, also surveys that we've done with professionals, with consumers as well, that demi-permanent is very trendy also because it's perceived as less damaging, more pro hair health, more pro shine, more pro all that. So if we can match the benefits of demi-permanent with a permanent color, I think that's going to happen. And as I mentioned, there's one big chunk of permanent color that is growing as well, and we've analyzed it in our recent study as well. Uh, we have a few more questions. Let me see which ones to choose. Um, what do you cover under scalp care? Oops, sorry. What do you cover under scalp care? Under scalp care, are basically, or professional hair care products that have benefits for scalp. In our study on professional scalp care, we actually divided into different function buckets. We also size up each of them, and we also had given more attention to anti-hair loss in the recent edition. So feel free to reach out about that. We have a lot of detail there. Maybe one last question. Just checking here. Okay, here's one more. Oh, there's more than one. Okay. uh, is scalp care the only major trend, or are there other trends expected to emerge? I know that scalp care has been around for a while. Repair has been around for a while as well. So I think there are new chapters in that happening. We see that weight loss triggered GLP-1 weight loss triggered type of hair loss is a big market now. We see that there is, so it's really about, so we see that longevity is a big thing. So we see new chapters and sub-chapters of these mega trends. So scalp care is a mega trend, right? Longevity is a mega trend. Hair repair is a mega trend. But we've seen, there was a chapter started with bond building, and we still have, it's still going on. It's still a lot of formulae being created with bond building. So I'd say that scalp care and deep repair are constantly areas that drive innovation, that drive new product launches, and that drive, consumers and stylists to purchase these products. So there's still a lot to be said in these areas. So scalp care is not, gone, or, repair is not gone. We're just writing new chapters. So you guys are actually are the ones writing the new chapters in that. So thanks so much, guys. I still have a bunch of questions. If you would like to get in touch, my contact details are here on the slide. Please feel free, any thoughts or questions or inquiries regarding what you've seen, what you've heard today, feel free to reach out to me. And I'll be more than happy to answer. Sorry, I didn't get to all of your questions, but there's still a bunch of them, and we need to be wrapping up for today. So thanks so much for your attendance, and I'll see you around. Thank you.